All right, just to talk about a few things that we've been working on as a board. Louder? It's about as loud as I can. Okay. We had 2 very successful days of vaccine clinics. I want to thank Chief Martin and my husband Bill for that. I think almost everybody on the island that wanted to get vaccinated got vaccinated. It was very successful. I think we're pretty lucky to have been able to do that.
Well, we down to the age 40.
Well, at the end, everybody that wanted to get it got it. So we were in good shape. Some other things we've been working on. Rich has been working on recycling. We've been talking a lot about all of these things will be gone into in greater detail later by individual board members. But we've been talking about the Brazilian pepper issue, golf cart issue, and the new development that's going up on the island. May. So we'll get into all of that as our board members speak individually. First, Lieutenant Sawicki.
I'm over here. Sorry, I was hiding around the corner.
That's okay.
Chris said you wanted to try to keep this to about 10 minutes. So I think what I suggest is that I answer a couple of very basic questions, and then we'll stay after the meeting once the UCCA meeting business is finished. Then we'll stick around. We'll, people just ask any questions they want to, and if anybody just wants to leave because they're tired of hearing us talk, they can take off.
Okay.
So that way we don't have to worry about a time frame. A couple of topics that I'd really like to go over and things that we can get into detail on afterwards. A lot of you have heard me talk a lot about a lot of different things, and we've discussed in great detail, things we can do to mitigate problems with golf carts. We've talked about noise. We've talked about all kinds of other things and the limitations and the power scope of authority that we have as the sheriff's office. But one thing that we've kind of missed out on is the things that you guys can do to go ahead and set a tone and to kind of have a proper branding for your island that keeps some of this stuff under control. And about, a little over 2 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, we had a large group here from Tampa, about 100 kids or so. And we ejected one house outright. They were gone. There was no parent, no responsible person. The guy just rented it for like his 17-year-old daughters, and they just started having a party. Obviously, the homeowners wanted them out. They're gone. Okay, but some of the problems that we ran into when I went over here to Hidden Lane and talked to 3 or 4 houses full of teenage kids that had their parents present, and 2 different houses brought up to me that they felt that they were kind of given the bait and switch, because between the booking process and at check-in, they were told there's no cops out here and they can do whatever they want. Okay, so obviously we have a problem with the tone being set up here that doesn't necessarily meet with the community expectation. Okay, so I think we would all agree that A, that's not true. I have a whole stack. It's 18 pages of single space tiny print of all the calls we've been on up to this point this year. Okay, we're here all the time. You may not see us every time we're here, but we're here few times a week. We monitor this behavior. When we had those kids here, Chris and I were here till 3:20 in the morning one night. We were here till 10:15, 10:30 another night. We were here every day when this was going on. And by the end of the week, it was largely tamped down because we talked to the people over there. We had a conversation about the expectations of the island, the community character, the standard of conduct that's expected up here. And that's where the conversation led to, well, we were just told we could do what we want, and I don't think that's productive, and I don't think that's what anybody wants. So I think this is where a coordinated effort that is not just, and I'm not trying to cast this in a community versus rental thing. It's not that way, because that's not a fight that anybody's really going to win. I think what everybody wants to do, and everybody has the same, I think nobody's really at cross purposes here. That if you guys all work together in the same way that we do kind of on Captiva, our community groups and our rental group companies, everybody works very well. And what we're trying to do is just keep what we want for that island. And they have a strong brand, and it's a, community, like family vacation spot. And yes, there are little flare-ups of noise. Every now and then a group who doesn't know how to use Google confuses Captiva for, you know, Padre Island in Texas or something. But what we end up with is, in general, it runs very smooth down there because there is coordination between the different groups. And I think looking at the way that this board is it seems larger than the last time, but certainly the meeting is well attended, and I think this is heading in the right direction. Particularly, I know you guys have an active Facebook group for property owners, and that seems to be a good way to coordinate some of these things. But make sure you're involving your business owners, make sure you're involving your rental companies, and make sure that it's kind of clear because they want the same stuff too. They want people to come here, have a good time, spend money, lots of money, and go home. Okay, and I think that nobody wants people getting hurt. Nobody wants, you know, whether it's residents or other guests, having to put up with, you know, insane noise, insane parties. It's just not really what you guys have up here. But you're going to have to make a coordinated effort to protect that brand. So, like I said, I have all kinds of documents here on golf carts, noise control, and several other topics that we can get into in a more detailed sort of way here after the meeting. But one thing I also wanted to bring up, which we have a guy on Captiva that brought this to my attention. A lot of the homes out here are rental properties, and he brought to my attention a product which seems to be really good. I want to make it plain, I don't work for this company, I don't know that much about them. I'm just suggesting this as a type of product. I'll leave it to you to research a brand and see if it would fit your needs. But he installed a device that looks like a smoke detector in the property. It's made by a company called Minut, M-I-N-U-T. And what it does is it monitors sound level, it monitors humidity, temperature, and it monitors occupancy. And with us having all of these houses on septic and things like that, we don't want 75 people showing up in the house after they've said quits for 6 of us. So the way that it works is it will measure the number of mobile devices on the property. And if all of a sudden, you know, when they check in and you look and, you know, kids got their iPad, their iPhone, and their Apple Watch, and, you know, their Switch and all the other stuff, when they check in and there's 13 devices, and all of a sudden that spikes to like 60, then you know you have a problem on your property. It will measure decibel counts. Now, it doesn't record. There's no audio recording. There's no video recording. And that's to, you know, because the product's designed for rental homes, it's to avoid you know, spying, eavesdropping, privacy concerns, or whatever. It just hits a point where when the decibels go up to a level that you preset or an interval that you preset. So if you're saying, hey, if it gets to be 72 decibels for 10 minutes or longer, then it's going to ring to your phone and let you know that you have a problem on your property. You know, whether you're at home in Michigan or Ohio or traveling to Timbuktu, as long as you have cell signal, you'll know what's going on at your house. And also as a way to protect your investment, if the temperature starts getting all wacky, you know you got problems with the air conditioner. If the humidity starts going way up, probably air conditioner or your renters are running the AC and flinging the doors open at the same time. You know, so it's going to help you with energy costs. It's going to help protect your home. And it will also help for you to monitor conduct inside these properties. So I've already talked to a couple of property managers. I brought it up with Duncan back here, and it looks like a pretty neat product. Some of our property managers on Captiva are recommending it to their homeowners. And it seems like just a product that might help for some of the problems that we get up here, some of the complaints. So that class of product is something you guys can look into and see if it would be a good fit. Okay, any other specific questions, or we can move on to, yes.
Just a quick question, and I don't want this to get prolonged because we have a short amount of time, but this is a big topic that goes on between homeowners on the island. Is there an age restriction for operating a golf cart on Upper Captiva Island? If we saw a 9-year-old driving, father in the passenger seat, is there anything to enforce?
No, not for us. There's no ordinance or no state statute that restricts on the roads that you have here. So if you look in the state statutes, you're going to see language about operating on the roadways. You have to be 14 years old. On Captiva, there's an ordinance requiring you to be at least 16 and have a driver's license. But what those laws and ordinances have in common is that they regulate publicly maintained roads. So, which you guys just don't have up here. These are all easements across private property. So the regulation and control of the operation of these golf carts is largely going to have to come from the owners of golf carts, and whether that's a rental company or individual owners. And I have made a bunch of suggestions. I know I've probably made things very tough for you. That's great. Yeah.
They have names. They're available to anyone that wants.
Yeah, okay, so stickers like this are a really good idea on Captiva. They put them right on the steering wheel and on the inside of the windshield. They have a little map that shows where you can go, which obviously isn't an issue up here, but it says right on there, any underage person, and their rules are 21 for their rentals, because that's per their insurance. You know, they can't get insurance till their kids drive golf carts. There's no sane insurance agent in the world that will allow that. By the way, you might want to talk to your homeowner's insurance policy and an attorney about whether it's a good idea for you to entrust a golf cart, either directly or implicitly through just leaving keys at a rental home, to allow a kid or an inebriated person or whatever to operate that. You're going to hear a word called negligent entrustment a lot in that conversation with an insurance agent or an attorney. So as a homeowner, you should really look into whether that's a good idea. My suggestion is you livery your carts with somebody who will make them sign a contract, and that there's somebody out here that they sign that contract with who can enforce it. On Captiva, the golf cart rental place, they do not mess around. If there's a kid driving that cart, they take the cart from you, they do not refund your money, and they hit you for $350 out of your deposit as a fine. And it's on a great big sign when you walk up to their windows. A sandwich board sign this big, and it's on 2 different stickers on the golf cart. Right on the steering wheel, right on the window. And so, you know, that is a case where they're more restrictive than we are. You know, our ordinance says 16 with the license. They're enforcing their own policies. They're very strict about it. And we have a significant part of Captiva where we can't enforce it anyway, because you know, inside of South Seas, it's not publicly maintained roads. There's like 2 miles of roadway up there that we have no control over. But the cart rental company can do it. And you have the same thing here. There's no reason why, as a property owner or as a golf cart rental concern, that you can't make those same rules and that you can't enforce those rules.
Signs say that you used to have signs on trees and they just.
Well, so just to be clear, those signs that were out here that had a picture somewhat resembling a sheriff's department star, those are not official signs, and they're not. There's nothing that really backs those up. You can put whatever. I mean, that's up to you. We won't make signs like that because we're restricted on, you know, anything that we put up on a sign has to be backed up by an ordinance or a law. I mean, we can't just bluff people and tell them, you know, hey, you can't, you know.
But UCCA could, the association say, okay, let's just say 16.
Just as a reminder.
You can post anything you want, but it's not
Right.
enforceable.
Just as a reminder, and in the issue of everybody's time and being respectful, Bill Fry has worked with Sheriff's Department and everybody else you can think of on this issue. And I would ask that maybe we put this in the parking lot for just a few minutes. We will get to it.
It's on the agenda. And I think our plan is to have a wider, larger dialogue with the Sheriff's Department at a later time that's focused just on.
And some of you guys are new to this conversation, but I've been working on skinning this cat for like 12 years, almost 13 years. I've done a lot of research. We've already talked to, between some of you up here and us, we've talked to our legal department, we've talked to the county commission, we've talked to all kinds of different people. And it's not as simple as us kind of waving a magic wand and making this problem go away. Because that state law, which the county derives the authority from for their ordinances, only covers publicly maintained roads. The county is a little bit limited in saying, okay, well, we're going to apply that for up here, because we derive that authority from the state statute. The state statute specifies public roads. Now, whether they could do one from scratch, I don't know. That's a conversation to have between the community and your representatives in the county commission.
Okay, Lieutenant, you can stick around?
Yes, I'll be sitting right over here.
Wonderful.
Oh, hang on one second. We have Chris.
I'm Chris. I'm your resident deputy for Captiva, North Captiva, Cape Costa, all that both brand. Mike's our lieutenant. I just want to say one quick thing, because I get this from residents a lot. If you have an issue, I am here 24 hours a day. So is Lieutenant Sawicki, so is our other deputy. If you call us about a problem at a house and say, well, 3 weeks ago I had this issue, A lot of the laws that we can enforce have to be things that either we witness, we have to gather evidence and those sort of things. If you guys are having issues, you are not bothering us. You are not waking us up. We are here 24 hours a day for you guys. Do not hesitate to contact us. We will respond. If it is a crime that needs to be addressed, we will get on the boat at 2 o'clock in the morning and come up and address it. Promise.
Yeah.
Please do not hesitate to contact us when it's happening. We're here for you. We want to make sure you guys are receiving the level of service that you expect and that we want to provide for you. So please contact us if you need us.
That is the standard that I apply to these guys. If we have this same call on Captivo, could we go to it? If the answer is yes, then we'll go to it here. Then we'll go to it on Cayo Costa. We'll go to it on Cabot Key or Ucca or whatever. So we timed this out one day. We took a video. I'm sure we can send it to anybody that's interested. It only takes us a little less than 6 minutes to get from South Seas to Safety Harbor. So, right, well, depending on the weather, of course, but on a smooth day and everything, I mean, it takes us less time to get here than it does for us to get to a lot of our locations on Sanibel. So, don't hesitate to call. And even if it's something that doesn't require a physical response, certainly something you can call and we'll help troubleshoot it or figure out the best way to handle the problem. And we like to get on top of community problems while they're small and before they turn into a big crisis. So feel free to call. I'm going to leave a stack of cards and it's got my cell number on it. And so you guys can feel free. I'll leave them up here and you guys can pick them up as needed.
Thank you.
And go ahead and call if anything you need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
The agenda is the chief's report. Chief Martin.
I really don't have a lot for you. There's a couple of real interesting issues that have developed over the last month. We've done a couple of elevator rescues, right? Okay, not everybody's got one, but we've had to get a couple of people out of them. And we have the ability to do an elevator rescue, but both instances have resulted in a failure to maintain or service that elevator. The danger is, because it's not a commercial elevator, you may not get your tech in every year to look at it. It may, because of the less than permissive or suitable environment for metal, it becomes a problem with corrosion, drying out, fraying, shorts in the systems. Both instances, the occupant was stuck between floors. Well, now you have a drop hazard, right? Even if it's one story and you're halfway down there, nobody wants to jump out off of your deck and hit the ground. So the danger is real. And there's not a lot of them on the island, but there are more than 2 or 3. So we encourage you, if you have an elevator, please get that thing at least looked at, whatever comes to mind. We feel that perhaps a lot of these have been installed, and as long as it's working, you don't call anybody. And there's a fair amount of logic in that. But if you're stuck halfway in between, you can't get out of it. There's a few risks there. Obviously, the drop hazard, the fall hazard. The other one is I'm pretty sure that there's an air-conditioned elevator in any of these homes. Now it's a heat issue. Because you're in a metal box, you may or may not be able to get out with your cell phone. What I'm saying is there's a lot of risks here associated with such a simple thing. And we've had 2 of them lately, and that's why I bring it up to you all. If it was one occasionally once every couple of years, it may be less of an issue, but now we're starting to see that. And so it becomes a concern of ours that we wanted to relate to all of you. You may even have neighbors. Encourage it. Okay. The second thing is we've had yet another canine, very sweet greyhound, died the day before yesterday, getting into rat poison. Okay. This makes 4 since I've been here. That doesn't mean there's one every year, but none of us want to see an animal go that way. Okay, it's very painful, and it's almost a certain death. Okay, and I'm not blaming anybody, and we have, the rat problem is real. We understand it, we have it here. But if you can, just take that time to move that. If you've got renters coming in, make them aware. If you know that it's not gonna be rented for a couple of days, you may wanna change that prevention profile with rat poison. But if you have somebody coming in, you may wanna change that yet again. Okay? It's not about us, but it is about us. You know, a family that was here didn't know to even think about it. We received several calls and attempted to help, but we just don't have, we don't have the insurance, we don't have the training, we don't have the ability to run a veterinary clinic. And it broke our hearts that we couldn't do that. She simply thought that her greyhound had overexerted himself in the surf, playing the day before, and that made sense to all of us. Unfortunately, by dawn, he had passed. So, and we couldn't get him the care he needed. Now, we've got some things that we're gonna do. I'm going to get partnered with one of the Pine Island vets, and we're gonna make that link, so I will try to have somebody on call 24/7 that either can come out here, but most likely we can coordinate with for your pets or the pets of your clients and get them over to Pine Island so we can get them definitive care. We're gonna try to get that put into place. But those are really the only two subjects I really had. One of a passive one is the fire danger. We got rain last night. We expect rain today. I will tell you that in those bursts like that, pounds us and then leaves. Doesn't really get absorbed. Okay, so fire danger remains elevated. We've got contingencies and plans set up to address it. You see it, let us know. Call 911. We had somebody the other day call us at the station. She saw smoke over to her northwest, couldn't quite place it. But we spent, I had one of the officers on staff spent 2 minutes trying to work with her to get the location, where she was and where it was in relationship to each other. We were ready and on the road before he got done speaking with her. The problem was is I'm shorthand, which makes us 25% less effective. Please call 911. They can speak with you, they can work with you, and they will relay your information to us as soon as it comes out. Okay? So it turned out to be the incinerator from Safety Harbor Club. Very, yeah. But honestly, if you guys know, right? You know that happens. There's a lot of renters out here that don't know. You know, and it doesn't smell like a grill. So they see the smoke, it doesn't smell like a grill, doesn't smell like ribs. So they know that there's something wrong. And I don't fault them for that. But that was our last thing. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Real quick, with the vet, about 2 years ago, I was working with one of the vets on Pine Island, trying to get them to commit to just what you're talking about, as well as perhaps coming out once a month or every 6 weeks or so, to do vaccinations, trim nails, get them checkup. But then COVID came along and those dogs died, but I'd be happy to give you the info and we can cover it.
Sure. You know, and we are there to help. We felt a little bit, we felt a little bit helpless because we didn't have those venues that way to reach out. If my guys can get the direction from the vet, I'll back them in trying to help an animal. But there's some things we simply can't do. We cannot put an animal in the back of the ambulance. It's against federal law. Okay, there's some things we cannot do. That being said, there's a lot we can do out here to help if we have that link with a trained professional.
There is a consultant veterinarian on the island that lives here. I don't know all the time or not, but you might.
I'd be willing to reach out. You guys know him? That's fine. We would really appreciate that. You know, we're always trying to do better. Ellie?
Hey, so about the vaccines, last year during COVID, my 3 dogs got injected.
Yep.
So just real quick, you had about 24 hours to get them on the right medication, and they were all absolutely fine, but it's hard to know how much each dog ate and everything like that, so if If you ever have a question about rat poison, and by the way, they were locked up. Peanut butter cups were locked in one of those plastic things. But, you know, labs do anything.
Right.
They'll break it open.
Right, and again, it's not about fire, it's not about EMS, but it is something in the community that we would love to help with. And it breaks our hearts to see something like that happen, especially if we could prevent it. And we'll definitely step up and do everything we can to help our community with that. You guys, a lot of you have pets. Maybe you keep that stuff up. But the renters, the clients that come in, they bring their pets, they don't know. You guys know better than anybody about palm rats. It's a necessary evil. You gotta have it. Otherwise they'll leech out of house and home. I get that, but I wanted to just make it aware, okay? Because for a couple of my guys, this is for probably within the last 2 years. And it's something we can prevent. Any other?
Yeah, and just as a follow-up to that, for those of you who are somewhat new to the island, this has been an ongoing problem. If you leave a bag of rat poison outside, you're probably gonna end up with a bunch of dead rats on your property. Hawks eat the rats, hawks die. Barn owls eat the rats, barn owls die. Please, you know, we understand with the rats, it's a necessary evil, poison. We use trash ourselves, but sometimes it's just easier to have a little plastic box, but please be careful. It's all of our pets and yours as well as wildlife.
Chief Martin? Yes, sir. Sorry. Just one question about the fire prevention and it being dry. Is there any regulation over fire pits? I know there aren't many of them. There's a couple on the island. They definitely seem to super freak out, you know, most homeowners.
Mm-hmm. Being that this district, the island, doesn't have a burning ordinance in place, we defer to the county's rulings regarding open burning. Permissible items are cooking fires, and it's really about the end of it, the long and the short of it. Okay, now that means you can cook with gas, you can cook with charcoal, and that's fine. You know, we all want a safe community. I get that. There was an issue, I believe, in Safety Harbor Club about someone grilling on their porch. Okay, I would strongly advise against that. I personally have responded to 2 apartment building fires in my career that were caused by just that, and we lost the building because it was the outside that went in. This construction of the village here is the exact same way. And the fire stops are useless. They're useful in the inside out. They're useless on the outside in. Rick Fox also brought up to my attention that the insurance company has forbidden that. And actually, while my authority is somewhat limited in this, if your insurance company will not cover you for this, you're putting your neighbors at risk for a loss as well. And they went as far as to tell Rick is that they would not insure anyone in the building if this was going on. So we're willing to help. If you see it, give me a call. We're not going to come out and be heavy-handed or anything. We take it as a training moment, or as an education moment. We'll come out, we'll show you if you have questions on the risks about it, and hopefully we can try to give you some options. But that's actually come up as of late.
Anything else from Chief Martin?
Young lady.
I just want to say one thing about the elevators. We have an elevator in our house, and then we have a couple of different companies that will come out to the island and service it every year and make sure everything's right.
Okay.
We just have to look them up.
Yeah. We're all trained in elevator rescue, big shock, right? Firemen do that. We have a fair amount of inventory as far as tools, keys. We just bought an entire set of elevator keys because Tyson Crook, Otis, and a couple of these other USA elevators, a lot of them are different, a lot of them are mechanically similar. So we now have a full set, no matter what your model is, the age of it, we'll be able to at least unlock it to get to where we need to be. We can always get in. It's about how much damage I make getting. And I'm trying to minimize that. But thank you. Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
If there's
enough homeowners, maybe you could designate January 1st. Let's get the elevator company out and.
Yep. I'd be willing to help with that.
Something, and they can all get
Mhm.
service at the same time.
I bet he would like, I bet he would appreciate that.
Sure.
A lot of the vendors will do that. Same thing with sprinkler systems. Not everybody's got one, but a lot of you do. And with most of the homes, they're installed, performance tested, engineer tested, and everything else when the home is installed or, built.
It's 12 o'clock.
Thanks. But they're,
Time check.
My computer does that.
following up with that is a real problem. Now, where the problem lays is, again, the valves tend to corrode. Your PVC tends to degrade. I'm not telling you things you don't know. And we have to hook in and activate that system. Some of them are automatic, okay? But no matter what the type of system is, you really owe it to yourself to have somebody come out. We have already set this up 2 years ago with Sears Fire Protection in the Cape. They're willing to come out. They've already done USEPA and Cottage Key. They're willing to come out to the islands and help us with those. They specialize in residential systems, so they know what they're working with. They can keep your costs down and keep your property safe. So I encourage you, hit me up if you need that. I can provide you with links.
The same thing applies to generators. You got a generator, we always get 3 people to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Come out, and that's only like $300 a piece opposed to $9.
Good
We got
storm checks. We do it. It's done every 6 months. Our generator runs every week. It's important to have that in place, and it's just not just us, but you guys as well. We're stuck out here in a weather event. Really important. So again, if you cooperate a little bit, the techs will tear down that travel cost and make it minuscule with enough clients out here for them to work. And they appreciate business.
I don't know if Rick had said anything to the townhouse owners as far as the grilling, barbecuing, but it might be a good idea because there are so many new homeowners there and also renters. There's more renters than I've ever seen. And I think that there should be a sign there or something in each townhouse.
I'd encourage the property owner, if you're going to rent, to place that in your concierge book or whatever you guys leave out for your guests. Do it online, however that may be. But again, it's not just placing them at risk as the barbecue. It's putting that whole building at risk. And again, the insurance company made it very clear to Rick, who shared his concern with me. He and I worked on this a little bit. We didn't want to be heavy-handed or irresponsible or irrational about it, but it came down to the insurance company saying, no, not for anybody in that building. Well, that's not fair to you 2 doors down. If there's a renter, doesn't know that, and they think they're being responsible, they think they're being, observing it, and they may be totally. But again, it's always post-incident that they'll find this out. Okay? And the insurance investigators will get their cause. They will get their investigation complete, and their investigation doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with mine. They're interest holders. They have the right, and most of them use that right to have their investigators come out. So it's not like you could sweep it under the rug. It would come out. Okay. So again, help each other out, check each other a little bit. Gas is much safer than charcoal. I know it doesn't taste the same. I get it. Gas is much safer than charcoal when it comes to cooking fires like that. And I encourage you all, if you haven't made the change, make the change.
What about like the George Foreman electric grills?
You have to go, that's any open flame, Thank you, kind of clarify. It kind of quantifies as a hot plate
Right.
with grills or with grates. But yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We've been told by Safety Harbor, no charcoal grills.
Okay.
Yes, and it was after we just moved here at Halloween. to. They had a grill, but it was unusable. So my husband came over and asked you,
Yeah.
we're in the market, what should we buy, gas or charcoal? And you said either, and then right after that, we got a thing from Safety Harbor, we bought gas. Right after that, Safety Harbor said no charcoal. Now, there was an incident recently, a renter was complaining to me that someone else came over to them, they were already cooking their food on charcoal grill because they have both charcoal and gas at the rental. He said we chose charcoal because it tastes better.
Right, right.
Maybe the homeowners need to just get rid of those charcoal grills.
And
tell
this-
people no charcoal.
This body of property owners and citizens, you guys have a lot of weight with that. You have a lot of peer pressure that you can apply. I remember your husband coming over, yeah. And I apologize for that, but I was unaware of what the insurance and the club's regulations supersede anything because you all reside on private property. So they actually will have that final say.
Okay.
Move it along.
Yeah.
Yeah, you move on?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yes, watch
you.
these guys
Thank you,
later.
Mark.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks, guys.
All right, next we have treasurer's report. On behalf of Helen, Erin is going to do the treasurer's report. Helen's not here.
Financial statement, the general fund first quarter beginning balance was $25,991.79. The income membership dues was $6,692.75. Total income was $6,692.75. Expenses, administrative was $122.50. Insurance was $1,123. Mailing for Brazilian pepper was $552.19. Newsletter was $915.53 with total expenses of $2,713.22. Ending balance, we had $29,971.32. And our net income was $3,979.53. Then our island access fund, beginning balance was $101,310.62. Interest was almost nothing, $2.50. And ending balance, $101,313 within 12 cents. The community center, beginning balance was $5,404.54. Interest, 14 cents. Ending balance, $5,404.68. So the total bank balances, assets is $136,689.12 for the island access fund. That's it.
All right.
Second
Motion to approve the treasurer's report.
We approved it at the board meeting, I think.
Yeah, we did that already.
Thank you. All right.
Can I just point out to everyone that this information is on the website. So if you need to go, you want to go look at the financials, they're all there.
All right, next is board meeting logistics for members. David?
I'm gonna stand up so I'm not hidden behind this monitor over here trying to do the Zoom meeting. This information I'm about to talk about, I'm gonna try to be brief, but it is on the website as well. So if you wanna go read this, the topic is about the bylaws of UCCA say that members may attend board meetings. Doesn't say they shall attend board meetings or anything else. It's very nebulous, pretty nebulous about it. They may. I think the intent was always that if membership had concerns about how the board was acting or behaving or topics related to that they would be able to have a view into that. It's not logistically easy to do to have this kind of thing for every board meeting we have. So we wanted, the board had various discussions over time about what does it really mean and how do we do that to provide members transparency to members, but not be very difficult to coordinate meetings every time and to inhibit the work of the board. So we outlined and discussed this, and here's what we came up with. So first thing is to be clear what a board meeting is. That seems obvious, but If we were defining a board meeting as any meeting which the board members meet and take votes to do UCCA business. What that doesn't mean is every time we get together or have a discussion about topics that preparing for a meeting or doing whatever, that is not a board meeting. There's, you know, if we take a very strict view of that, every time there's 5 people gathered, we could call it somebody might say, hey, that's a board meeting we want to see, which might be legitimate, but it just gets very difficult to coordinate the logistics, make sure there's space. How do we do that? Who has access? So we've identified what a board meeting is in this as those meetings where we attend a meeting, and it's usually quarterly, unless there's a special one, to do business where we take votes. So we would then provide the following access to those. The second thing is that it's to members, not to the public. This is a public meeting. This general membership meeting is open to the public. And board, per the bylaws, the board meetings are not. They're for members to may access that. And again, we're following along with the bylaws. I don't think there's anything trying to hide stuff. But again, the UCCA business is focused about the business of UCCA members, not public in general. We want to benefit the members, but it's for the UCCA members. What we decided to do is how do we communicate this fact that there's going to be a board meeting and provide information to you about what happened at the board meetings if you don't attend. So we agreed to following. So there's always a chance for in-person attendance. If we had a board meeting and back in the days before COVID, this wasn't such a big deal where access was to the public, wherever we go, might be fine. If you really feel strongly about that, we just ask that you communicate to one of the board members, say, I really have a strong urge to attend this board meeting in person, and we'll work on that. We want to be careful about the logistics, like where we're meeting in space, and make sure you have access safely. We will always do a Zoom meeting. So we'll do a Zoom meeting available just to members, okay? So we'll send out a meeting invite to just the UCCA members, so you can attend via Zoom to the board meeting if you feel strongly that's what you'd like to do. We would admit only members into that meeting, because if people could be sharing it to their friends or other people. And again, this is strictly related to trying to be focused on what the bylaws say about membership access. We would post an agenda ahead of time on the members only section of the website. So I hope you as members know that there is a members only section of the website, and I hope you know and have logged into it before. There's special content there that is available just to members. It's not available to the public. So if you haven't done that or seen that, you can always email info@uppercaptivacivicassociation.org, and I'll make sure that you get your logins resolved or whatever it is that need be. So we'll have we'll have an email notice to let you know there's the members let know there's going to be a meeting. There'll be an agenda online and a Zoom meeting. And following that meeting of the board, then we will publish the minutes of that board meeting on that same members only area of the website. So if you have interest in what happened at the membership meeting, you log on to your account and see that page, and you'll have access to those meetings. And so we feel that that will try to provide as much transparency as we can, and not like get where it's very difficult to, where we're trying to not doing the board business. We're more concerned about how do we access logistics of making sure everybody gets there. Did I cover that?
Thank you. Thank you, David. Any questions for David? David?
You're talking about getting together without it being an official board meeting.
Yeah.
If any more than 2 people at that meeting, you're violating the sunshine laws.
No.
The
sunshine law.
We're not
A civic association is not covered under the sunshine law.
And that's exactly right. Technically, if 5 of us meet, that's a quorum, and that constitutes a quorum for a board meeting. But as David said, because this is one of the points that I pressed hard about, is that if we don't publish the agenda and don't publish that we're holding the meeting, then I was opposed, and we all agreed that we would not take any votes that impact UCCA members or the business of the organization. So there are a number of good reasons why a smaller subset would get together. All of these different topics that all of the leads on golf cart or Brazilian pepper or safe harbor or whatever else, some of us work together, 2 or 3 or 4 of us at a time. I can't imagine five of us would get together on an issue that would constitute a quorum, but it's entirely possible that we're doing an update before a board meeting to try to get a checkpoint, or it's entirely possible that there could be an upcoming county meeting or some other exterior thing that requires more people than just the 2 or 3 or 4 that are primarily working the topic.
So it's more or less, it's just a committee meeting.
It's a working group meeting if a vote is not taken. And so the point is, it has, for it to be a board meeting, for a vote to occur, it has to be a published, announced board meeting for the members to be able to connect to if they wish to.
Thanks for clarifying that.
All right, next on the agenda, roads update. AJ is here.
Hi, everybody.
Oh,
I do this at the fire board meetings, and I see a smattering of different faces, so I'm going to probably do a little redundancy here, mostly try to ask questions at the end. We're going into the sweet spot of our road season. The last 2 months are always a big challenge because of the number of renters that we go through. Very difficult to run a grader, especially down some of our thinner roads like North Airport Road, where you have a bunch of golf carts, et cetera. So now that we're past the Easter holiday and just before the rainy season, which starts unofficially on June 1st, we've got 6 weeks to get some good things done, and it's our intention to do some of the bigger things. You'll see Mark Justice's grader crew out here sometime in the next 2 weeks. We're kind of waiting for the airport to finish their fence line of our North Airport Road. That'll give us a good opportunity to clean up, that whole swale down that end. It doesn't mean that we weren't working during the last 2 months. I guess it depends on what road you live on. If we touched one of your roads, you probably noticed it. I think we've had great success in filling a couple of the holes that are out there. That was my promise over the last 2 months. A perfect example, a great solution. I'd love to encourage everybody that owns property out here, consider letting us do something like this around your property. If you have a big hole in technically your road, right over here at the end of Escondido, going in between Safety Harbor Club, was a great example of a simple solution. We used the Bobcat, we pulled some material off that was in the easement, but outside the main roadway. We retextured it, we put some new material down. It's actually a cubic yard of 57 stone in there and some pit shell. By the way, pit shell is kind of the magic out here. It seems to go on top of everything and it holds it together. But next time, maybe after the meeting, take a ride over there and just see, imagine, if you're not used to that hole, you might not have appreciated exactly what was solved for there. But in the rainy season, you're going to be able to traverse that particular part of the road for the first time without getting wet. So those are the kinds of solutions that are quietly going on out here. West Sierra, we did 2 of them. Hidden Lane, we did 2 of them. We solved some real problems over on Hidden. We also ran the grader down for the first time down the last 3 streets, the Shell Streets, Panama, Oyster, and Butterfly. There's always a little bit of a challenge when we do that because there's a sense that material is being kind of moved around. We're trying to flatten. When you bring a grader out, you kind of flatten out the road. And so we're trying to do that very carefully and gingerly. Another problem, by the way, God rest his soul, Tom Levin put together a great map out here. He tested the soils out here. He identified 4 different regions that have different characteristics, and we treat those roads all differently. And so when I talk about solutions on one side of the island, it oftentimes doesn't apply directly to the other side of the island. So while I'm talking about the south side, that side of Safety Harbor, et cetera, we're very granular, very dry. You get lots of washboarding in those places where the sand's a little bit deeper. That's been one of my all-time greatest frustrations. We have tried very responsibly not to spend a bunch of money on things that might not work. So we've proceeded rather slowly, and I think I finally found a solution for washboarding. It does involve bringing some pit shell in. It does, by the way, bringing material in is a very expensive proposition. Roughly $150 a cubic yard is the material cost. And but we did a section of about 100 yards of one of the worst washboardings over on Panama Shell, and it has held up now for several weeks. In the past, if we had just knocked the washboarding down, it was back in 2 days. just as bad as it ever was. So that's an experiment that's working. We're also experimenting with, I want to see expressions on your face on this one, with dust. With dust, I've never seen it worse. It's terrible. It's unhealthy. I even have the respiratory thing going on right now that seems to may possibly be driven by it. And we're also, the chief told me we're adding 20 new homes this year. 20 new homes times 2 golf carts. There's 40 more golf carts on our system. Some of them will be rental programs. We're going to have to do something about our dust. So we have an experiment going on right now. We have a trailer out here that holds 500 gallons of water. By the way, if many of you are aware, construction sites have water trucks that are by permitting are required to keep the dust down in construction sites. And so equipment like that is also available to solve dust problems. But I think providing water is going to be the ultimate solution to that. I won't go any further because it's right in its fledgling stage, but you're going to start to see this little trailer now that the traffic's going to die down a little bit. We're going to drag it around on some dry, quieter days and see how long that water ends up lasting. I envision someday, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a commercial water truck that's purchased, used that we bring out here, I picture a volunteer group, somebody taking an afternoon, maybe you have to do it twice a day. By the way, you don't have to do it all season long. You don't have to do it in rainy season. You don't have to do it in the super quiet season. But for those high volume times, I think that's going to end up being our solution. And so expect more information on that as well. Let me think of what else I think that's good enough. You guys turn it to questions. Anybody have any questions?
I just want to thank you for what you did on Kingfisher. That you could use that on every road. It is held up. You crammed it so that the water runs off. And I've gone down there at least once a couple times a week, and it's great.
Thank you for that. Talk about it, right? Well, I exceeded my expectations. It is not a cheap proposition. That road runs about $40 a linear foot. We built 1,200 feet of pit shell and 57 stone road, but we have not touched it in almost 2 years now. I mean, not touched it, because if you build it structurally properly, you don't need to do the basic maintenance on it. And we've had rains. March 6th was a Saturday rain that destroyed the rest of the island. And the 2 best roads on the island were Kingfisher and North Airport Road. And I swear I would have never said I'd see the day where you mentioned those 2 roads were the best. Well, they were the best because they're structurally created properly to handle the water, handle the medium and the small rains. By the way, they'll never stop for the huge ones, the 1%ers, the tropical events, the ones where we had a river running down east Sierra at one point. I mean, there are going to be events that we just can't stop. But in general, that solution, it's expensive, but it works.
But also, you want to say that every homeowner, 99% of the homeowners chipped in.
Yeah.
$2,000 to $5,000 apiece.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, by the way, the reason why it took us a couple of years of debating to get it to this point, including legal opinions, et cetera, but we've got the fire department providing a line item in their budget. By the way, I just wrote a piece for David's request to be posted on the website so that when new people come in, they can get a little bit of a sense of the philosophy and the history about the roads and how we got here. Where was I going with that? I went up.
An existing funding line inside an annual budget.
Yeah, having some money out there, the way we sold it was basically to say a minimum standard for fire and rescue safety purposes. And so it isn't intended to solve for, get a perfect road in front of everybody's house. The philosophy here is the closer you are to the firehouse, in other words, the statistically most likely places that a truck will have to go at emergency speed, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, is where we're going to start. And if you live on the last 100 feet of some road, it's statistically not quite as important. All right, we're going to probably, the fire department and its budget will continue with that philosophy. But because these are private roads, you can do some of this yourself. You get $150 a square foot, can bring in some material and straighten out your private easement road. It can be done, and we've got equipment. I keep volunteering. I'll volunteer a little of my time to kind of help put some of that in place if you're really interested.
Where do we sign up for that?
On the fire district website, is my email address. Send me an email. That would be the best way. We'll archive some of that. I don't get back right away with that. Well, I promise you that we'll collect opinions and it'll be presented to those of us that are doing the work, which is so far a rather small subset. I could
I
use
said
a
a
little help.
couple of huge holes, like right in the middle of my house, like on the road.
Yeah.
Every time it rains, it's really good, and I'd like to.
What
I'm
road, by the
trying
way?
to shore up oral cases.
Okay.
I'm trying to shore up, like Charles was helping me, like put some of,
Yeah.
I mean, he let me have like 5 gallons of their slush stuff.
Yeah. We have, again, thanks to Mark Justice and his crew, he owns the equipment, but we have bobcats that run scarifiers, which are those claw pieces. We've got a grader attachment that's worth $22,000 he bought. There's a roller, buckets. I mean, we have the equipment to solve for those kinds of problems, but we're short of manpower and we're short of money, and that's where we're at. Oh, by the way, that is the one last challenge, and I will get to you. I'm sorry, but I want to make a comment. The one thing that I can't, actually, 3 things I can't control are Mark Justice will tell you he's never been busier in his career. He does underground work. He says I can't hire enough guys to handle my $1 million projects, and then to get him to bring people out here for a day and all the logistics that go with that is part of the challenge. And we've done a little less work because of that problem. Obviously, the weather plays a big role. Can't control that. That not only affects when we do work, but whether the barges can run, with 80,000 pounds worth of material on top of them. And another thing we can't control are the barges. There's, coming and going as far as their availability. So I want you to know there's an awful lot going on under the surface, and we're serious about solving problems. I have old video. I could really. There's going to come a time when everybody's going to go, Jesus, this looks pretty darn good. I don't remember when it was bad. I'll show you, but we are making progress. I'm sorry. Let me get in the back.
Real quick, get back to the dust factor. Has there been any consideration for calcium chloride for the dust?
Yeah.
The environmental impact on that.
I've asked a couple of others to try to quarterback a study on this thing. I don't know all the issues. There's no question. Calcium chloride is used on the mainland, all kinds of places. I don't know the answer to the environmental issues, but it's already been suggested that it could be part of the solution. So, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, was that it?
No,
Oh.
no. So my husband Ken and I have moved here to the island, and we're developing a parcel on Airport Swallow. You've probably seen us out there. So we have a large piece of equipment out here, and 59 Pagoda. It's going to live out here, and we also already have a box scraper. And then when we come back, we'll be bringing our grading plate.
Oh, awesome.
So we're volunteers. So the equipment will be here, and we'll be here
Awesome.
to help in any way.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
But, and then the other one is the airport fencing. The north side will be completed this Friday.
Right.
So I'm here for the week. So we've got the barging is the dump trailers coming over. We'll be here 10:30 with the rest of the material to get that out.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, once that, you guys have done a nice job of cleaning up the road there. We'll take that grader or your grader now and possibly, get ourselves a little bit better swale over there. So.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
You really do need a bucket to go in there and
Yeah.
work it. You can't just come in and
Yeah.
it's messy and it's very sandy.
Yeah.
Very gloomy. But we're also getting rid of a lot of that debris and it's being taken off island.
Yeah, that's great.
And so.
Well, obviously, running equipment like that, it's an acquired skill. The volunteer group can do different things depending on their expertise. This sounds like you guys have great expertise. The one thing I would ask is if I could be the clearinghouse for any projects where we share ideas before we start taking light equipment or heavier equipment out on the roads, because there's some things that we've learned. I've been out here 26 years now, and it's amazing how unique an environment this is in a lot of ways. So let's share ideas.
I'd like to just make an appeal in your presence, and then you can add to it. If you have a sprinkler system, please be responsible. You contact, if you don't know what to do about it, But when it drains into the road, golf carts go over it, they create holes. The hole gets bigger and bigger. I've got one more to do. A new sprinkler system. After you cleaned it up. So we now got this big mud hole. It's always a mud hole. There's always water in it. And you can see the trail. It's from their new sprinkler system. Spoken to the owner. I've spoken to Duncan who put it in. I hope that somebody, but in other words, if you're the homeowner, just please see to it that either you do something or get the installer to do something about it.
If you got standing water in the dry season, you got a sprinkler problem, and it does destroy the roads. By the way, that's the opening line in my several paragraphs that's going to be posted here. Water is the enemy of the roads. Most of our roads are lower because they're compacted or the materials have been moved around a little bit. We cannot have the roads doubling as retention ponds. It doesn't work.
Is that, would Ucca send those homeowners a letter saying, hey, your sprinkler system is messing up the road, can you address it?
I mean, it's kind of ironic that a verbal with them.
The owner and the installer of the sprinkler system.
There's
Which
three
is
other,
aware of.
there's three other people that I could name that we didn't have anything contentious, but it was destroying the roads. And ultimately, I went into the house and changed the sprinklers. I just admitted in front of the sheriff's department. I mean, you know, it shouldn't have to be this difficult, you know? It shouldn't.
Yeah, just looking real quick. Professor Rose. Very quietly and efficiently putting your team together. Also, I explained to her about spring breakers and each and everything else. So with the semester winding down, she's about ready to go. So, you know, I would encourage you to reach out to her and get something set up before it starts raining.
Yep.
And the other thing is, and I don't do this fire board meetings, I'm gonna do it here. You do it all the time. I mean, all the hours that you put in over the past few years from time House Bill 1717 got passed, we switched attorneys, we had a legal opinion we needed to do this. You're doing a hell of a job, buddy. You really are.
Thanks. I promised that I would, as long as I can keep it advancing the ball, I will. It's either if I run out of room to run or run out of energy or both, then I'm done. This is not going to be my life's work. But so far, I've got room and I'm getting some help and people are appreciating it. So thank you. Anything else?
Thanks, AJ.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rick Rose is something on the road. I don't know what it is.
Calcium chloride.
Okay, but that seems
Yeah.
to help. That's just in front of his house.
Yeah, he's using a granular. It can actually be put right into water. It dissolves instantly, but there are environmental discussions. I don't either.
We used to use it all the time on the roads up in Michigan.
Yeah.
That's why
Very common. You can Google it. It's all over the place. That's right. It will. I hope we don't have that problem. Okay. Well, more to come on that.
Thanks, AJ.
Okay. All right, next, Rick, Brazilian pepper.
Sure. Why not? Okay, for those of you who have either read it on the website or attended other meetings, for several years, we've had a regulation that said that we have to remove Brazilian peppers from an invasive species from vacant lots by the 1st of this year. Obviously, that has not been done. About 6 months ago, the board started to reach out to Lee County to see what their position was on this. We didn't want them descending on us and starting to cite people and levy fines and stuff like that. It's been an educational process, I suspect, on both sides, because the short of it is that we forgot about it and they forgot about it. So nothing really happened till, as David Bowlby put it once, we poked the sleeping bear, and we did. The present situation, after talking many times with various people in Lee County, is the following. One, there's not going to be anybody descending on us and citing us and fining us. Okay, that's not what they're going to do. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, we received a response to a letter we sent out a couple of months ago that says that there will not be an aggressive campaign of inspecting every lot and issuing code violation notices as we identify them, blah, 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 they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna find us, they're not gonna do it. When somebody builds a new house, you gotta get rid of them anyway. We know, I think AJ said, or someone, that there's about 20 new coming right now. That takes the problem down a little bit, but it doesn't eliminate it. The other good news is that there was some question about when you remove it, what you have to do with it. And we thought the county was going to be kind of a hard ass on this, but they're not. What they're saying is they'll leave it up to the fire department here, and Chief Martin and I have talked. Chief Martin has talked with other people, and we believe that a reasonable accommodation can be reached. If you have to take it off your property, you can spread it out, you can mound it, and then do something with it. What you can't do is make, 20 properties mounds all together and leave them there for a year without doing anything with it. But there are lots of services available. We put those services out, the contact information that is, and letter that we sent out in January to let people know that they would have help if they wanted, and it's not inexpensive to get rid of this stuff. The thing that we are as yet uncertain about, we thought we had an agreement with the county that if you did not have a building going up on your lot and you wanted to eliminate Brazilian pepper, you did not have to get a permit unless in the process you discovered a gopher torch. If you did, then you'd have to go through the procedure. But if you didn't, you're good. A couple of days ago, memo from the or rather a response to our letter from the head of community development, who's kind of the big kahuna on this over in Lee County, said, no, as long as you've got a structure on it already, it was frankly confusing. I've been doing this now with other members of the board for several months. Joanne Beermeister was doing it, and other people have helped me. We have no idea what their position is on this particular issue right now. So we're going to ask for clarification. We'll go specifically back and ask for those people who are vacant lot owners, if they want to get rid of it, do they need to get a permit or do they not? Whether there's a structure on it already or not. Hopefully in another couple of months, we'll have some clarification on that. As we get information from the county, David puts it up on the website. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. If we get enough information, we'll send another mailing out to vacant lot owners. But since the Lee County position is that they're not enforcing this ordinance at the moment, there's not a great deal of pressure on us to do that. That said, all of us would like, I think, Brazilian peppers to be gone from the island. We asked the county, if you would enforce this, could you give us a hard date when you would start enforcing it? And the county basically shucked and jived. They ducked, they moved, they butterflied, they floated, and we got nothing. I think that probably, and I'm saying this for myself, we are probably number 101 on the top 100 list of county priorities. We don't have that many voters out here. They've got actually a thing on record that says that we can expect less services than people on the mainland, which I completely disagree with, but nonetheless, that's where it is. I think that they're not going to give us a hard stop date. I don't think that they're going to enforce. I know that they're not going to enforce the regulation. I know that if we want to get rid of it, we can work with the fire department and reach a reasonable accommodation on an individual basis, and the fire department will be reasonable. The only thing that we have yet to clarify is, do you need a permit if you have a vacant lot and you're not building on it? That we will try to clarify, and as soon as we have something useful to tell you, we will tell you. Questions?
So just one brief comment. Rick mentioned that David would post it to the website, and if you go to the main page on the website, there's now an area where our basic initiatives are, primary initiatives for the UCCA are on there. So there's a little diagram, little link, and an icon that says like Brazilian pepper and golf carts and whatever, those 4 or 5 major areas. And so we'll continue to put things behind that, right? So that there's information about the initiatives that we're talking about today. So it's easy to go find what's new about Brazilian peppers.
Members or everybody?
Anybody. It's on the public side.
All right.
It's on the very main website page.
Thank you. And speaking of golf carts, that's next on the agenda.
So I'll stand up since folks always say I can't talk. And I'll pull a mask off so I can actually talk. What we've been focusing on the last 3 months since the last meeting is primarily first identifying what I think was the key issue is how do we slow down the golf carts. So there was a fact published a couple of weeks ago, I think, also posted on the website in the facts section. I've been remiss in doing my update articles that David will put on the main page that you can link to. But the key point is that we identified, I think, 3 or 4 of the on-island businesses that do maintenance on golf carts. They identified what they would and wouldn't do in the way of slowing down carts. A rough idea of what their cost would be, anything from nothing to 1 hour's charge, which is 60 or 70 bucks. If you have a newer golf cart that has an onboard, essentially an onboard computer, there's a programmer that your maintainer can connect to the golf cart's chip to reduce the speed of the golf cart. And for a club car, that table is actually posted inside the facts, since most everybody has club cars. I looked around and they're all club cars right now. But for my recommendation, I recommend that you at least consider having your maintainer chip your cart down to 1 or 2. 1 gets you somewhere between 8 and 11 miles per hour. That's probably the right speed, especially while we still have a problem with uncontrolled kids and unsupervised kids that joyride on the cart. To make them slower, they're not going to have a good time zooming around the island. Or at worst, to setting 2. And that'll keep it under 15 or 16 miles per hour. Now, the golf cart chipping process for those newer carts, as Swin has pointed out, if you want to get into the mathematics and the details, it's all different depending on what kind of cart you've got, how big the tires are, turning circumference of the wheels, and everything else. The bottom line is, if you chip them down to 1, you'll get 8 to 11 miles per hour, maybe a tad faster, but on our very smooth roads, they'll have a problem getting them up really to that upper limit anyway. If you've got older carts, at least 2 of the 3 companies on the island have said that they can make manual adjustments, tinkering with the way that the motor and whatever else works, to slow them down. I've got a very old golf cart, and either time or past maintainers have slowed my cart down, but someone has to be the slowest cart. I don't have a problem with them running into trees or anything else. I would ask, as the rest of the board would ask, is slow your carts down. Either do it, if you've got newer carts, chip them down. If you've got older carts, see if your maintainer can slow them down. The next area that David and I are focused on jointly, David as the webmaster, he is doing the programming for a couple of web pages that will let us start an on-island cart registry service. And at this point, we haven't finalized, and I haven't finalized the proposal and a draft back frequently asked questions article. But my recommendations will be that first, that anybody on the island, businesses or members or non-members, if they want to identify and post their golf carts into the registry, they should be allowed to do that. Second, that we have not, the programming that I've asked David to do doesn't care whether 2 or 3 of us have, or 10 of us have the same numbering system. The numbers that you put on the golf cart, at least at the start, we don't care what it is, because the whole idea is for someone from a smartphone on the road, as someone is driving by, they can snap a picture, they can go on their smartphone and do a search to find out by cart ID or house name or whatever other information they might find on the cart picture of the cart with color. I think those are the 3 main search criteria that we identify: color, cart ID number, and house name, whatever's posted on the cart. The idea would be that that you can then connect to the property manager's email account or the owner's email account or their phone number and text in real time that picture to try to start to get a handle on it. I think that capability is nearly right. We've traded, Dave and I traded emails and done some modifications to it over the last 3 to 4 weeks, I think. So that ought to go live. The board hopefully will approve that. We'll go live with what's approved in the next couple of weeks, well before summer season starts. The third area that I've been really remiss on is Lieutenant Swicky, 2 months ago at least, gave me contact information for the businesses on Captiva that actually have strong rental agreements and procedures for their carts that they rent. And as you heard, some of them have requirements that you have to be 21 years old, 21 years of age, and have a license. The only way that we'll be able to implement that kind of thing is to identify some of those more strict rental agreements from businesses that are in the business of doing it, and then work to convince owners and businesses on the island to put those into their own rental agreements as part of the agreements that they get renters to agree to and sign. The hard part will be actually imposing the penalties, the dollar penalties that defense we can talk about, because some homeowners that rent aren't going to want to be in position of taking golf carts away because that could cause negative homeowner reviews on the different review sites. I would tell you though that in most cases, especially since COVID, most of us aren't having any problems with reviews or anything else. Folks just want to quiet. It's a great place to get away to. And someone that complains that golf carts taken away because they were too drunk to drive it, they were unsafe driving it, children were unsupervised driving it, that actually would probably be looked at by some people as a positive review. So that's kind of where we're going. Those are the 3 big initiatives that I laid out. I'm really far behind on that last one. But my goal is before the next general membership meeting, I will have draft examples of rental agreements for businesses that are actually in this business that they've been able to impose dollar penalties and actually take golf carts away from folks that flout their rules and their policies. Okay.
We've all seen the modems go back and forth in NCIC. What makes those combustion engines different, like if, say, Duncan, why can't Duncan have a gas-powered engine instead of an electric car? Where's they're hauling the same things, I see. And they're going faster.
So as Lieutenant Sawicki said, there's no law that can be imposed on any vehicle on our private lanes because each of us own the set that's right in front of us out towards the middle of what should be the middle of the road that may or may not be. So the businesses for Kubotas and gas operated things, there's no law or ordinance in Lee County that says they can't do it. So the only thing that you've got is peer pressure with the businesses themselves. The same way that you have to have a hard conversation with a parent that you see that's letting a minor child, a really minor child, operate a vehicle is the same kind of hard discussion you might have to have with NCIC or any of the other businesses that have these. The bottom line is I've been told that Brian has made a commitment to sometime in the future, Brian Gerhard at NCIC, at some unknown point in the future that he will, in fact, convert all of his fleet to battery. But it's a business decision, and whether his customers want to press it.
It seems to me that one of the fundamental problems with cars is there's too many. And we have these rental problems now. I'm right around here. They advertise for 18 people, and they got 4 golf carts. And then that one at the end of Oral Pesos, they've just converted that garage into another bedroom. And they advertise for 14 people, and they've got 3 golf carts. And so, I mean, is there anything on, I guess the question for the tenants, is there anything on Captiva where they are actually, the owners have agreed to start restricting that?
Well, we also have a high volume of rented golf carts there too, that just, you just go to the business and that's all they do is rent. The equipment.
Another 175 come from home.
Right, and on very busy weeks, they'll rent them from another company, and
they might not have to agree there.
So I think you guys have some difficulties in how you can regulate stuff in here because of the, to be honest, the way a lot of this island was set up in the beginning, when it was very quiet and the group of people that were here really had an attitude that they didn't want a bunch of rules. And so there's, now that you have more people on the island, you're kind of reaping the unfortunate side effects of that, which are that the organization of the place is not really conducive to easy regulation. I would advise you to go and maybe get with your county commissioners, and after you guys have discussed it here on the island and come up with a pretty decent community consensus as to what you want, approach your county commissioners and see what they can and can't do. Now, the other thing, and it's even on Captiva, where we can regulate a lot of these things, we just have a lot of effect in working very, very carefully and closely with these businesses. We have a very good relationship with Royal Shell, with American Realty, with YOLO Water Sports, with, all these different community groups and businesses. Like I said earlier, we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. I mean, they don't want people getting injured on their equipment. They don't want people damaging their equipment. So they have an interest in making sure that it's being used right and being used responsibly. And, that goes hand in hand with the community wanting to see things be done safely and what have you. But as far as the volume of golf carts, I don't know. I really don't see an easy solution to that. I mean, unless there's something that you might be able to add to zoning or something up here about the number of golf carts that are allowed on the property or the number of chargers that can be connected to a property. But I just don't know that there would be enough of an overriding interest at the code enforcement level, or to go ahead and institute a code or statute like that, or ordinance rather.
And we already know that they won't institute a code enforcement anything with golf carts specifically out here. That was attempted by the panel, and that was specifically rejected by the county attorney's office in their recommendations to the various boards and the county commissioners when they voted on the ordinance. That includes pursuing upper eradication, night sky, and something else. Oh, on-island meeting requirements for applications. The bottom line is that things that they will enforce is if someone has exceeded the number of sleeping spaces, occupancy that their septic systems allow, because there's actually a permit for septic that everybody follows that goes through motion safety. Unless they've exceeded that number, there's no code violation. There's no code violation about having 15 golf carts out in front, parked out in front of your house, because we live in a great country that has parking. So, but there is code about the maximum number of occupants just because of septic systems, because you can't have a failure.
The other key point that you made earlier was, I guarantee you, these people that have rental properties, they don't understand the risk of providing these carts, and they don't have adequate liability insurance. So they're going out there, and as soon as somebody gets hurt, they're going.
And it's happened up here.
Yeah, it's happened.
We've had people successfully sued up here and it wasn't even that the golf cart was being operated improperly. What it came down to was they bypassed the person operating the cart, who was, I think, 19 years old, and went after the homeowner and said that they negligently entrusted that operator with the cart because they provided him with no training on how to operate that cart.
And that guy lost his house, business.
Yes.
That's
So
I was the one that worked at the court. When we had to go to court, the court case lasted 18 minutes.
So part of the rental agreement, I think the pieces that I'm going to work on is trying to also find out what the issues are about legal liability, primarily against insurance, because we can't trust what sounds like common sense.
Bill, if I can,
Yes,
here's
sir.
the things to consider as a homeowner is who's inspecting these golf carts in between each use. Because I'm going to tell you, I bet 99.9 repeating percent of the people out here, there's no inspection going on between there. There's no documentation of service or records. There's none of this stuff. That if somebody injures themselves on a cart that you provide, the very first thing their attorney is going to do is send you a subpoena for all the records on the inspections, all the records on the maintenance of that cart, the certification of the person providing that service. And you're going to come up with a big old goose egg on that. I mean, me personally, if I owned a house up here, there's no way I would include a golf cart with that rental. If I felt that I needed to have that and offer it, I would maybe add a voucher for a rental from one of the companies down here that then could, that's their risk at that point. You know, we're just waiving the fee, which of course I build into the cost of the rent, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, I think it's just a huge liability, and I would encourage you guys, as I've done in previous meetings, to meet with attorneys and insurance professionals and just look at whether that's a sound practice, or maybe there needs to be another solution.
And as what Lieutenant Zwicky said, that's the reason I cannot make that third thing the first thing to focus on, because the truth is, it's a huge can of worms. And there's all kinds of details. And although, as I said last night.
Most of us here don't rent our properties up, so that, it's required.
Well, I think where I think you guys can play a role in that though, is making sure to reach out to absentee property owners. You know, I know that the fire department and, you know, there's tax rolls and things like that. You can go to property appraiser and find out who owns all of these things. And I recommend, you know, drafting an advisory letter just as a neighborly thing to do and say, hey, I don't know if you thought about this, because, you know, you're at home in the upper Midwest and not thinking about this every day, but here's something to consider. You know, a lot of these people that own these places have probably never even been down here since they put ink to paper, and they just run it remotely. And they, you know, these are things that if they're not here on the ground to see what's happening, they may not be aware of it. You'd be doing them a favor by letting them know about the dangers of that. So
Last comment to Swenson,
Yeah,
and then
so-
we'll leave it at
Two quick, short things. So.
just one.
No, the term peer pressure has come up a couple times today, and I can't stress that enough, right? And so we can sort of translate that to community standards. And I think that that's what we've really got to evolve to. Community standards, we can accept it ourselves, but we have got to get our community to accept those standards. And so one by one, you should be talking to your friends, your neighbors, to accept those standards, right? Chipping down your carts, you know, if you rent, strong language, you know, all that to try to stop it. We're not going to solve the problem 100%. You're going to see a 9-year-old driving a cart with the father or the grandfather, grandmother next to them. It's going to continue to happen. But if we can solve 60% of it, it's just going to make for a better environment. So
Or
we've got
a car L12 that just zoomed past on
Yeah,
40
so-
miles per hour past 5 kids on a bike.
right, you know, and so we've got to do a better job of creating the sense of community. You see how many people are here. There's a few online. We're trying to involve the community, but there's such a large percentage of the community that just doesn't come into this discussion. We've got to bring them into this discussion.
But to close it out, that's one of the reasons that I've suggested and proposed that the red cart registry should be open to anyone on the island who wants to take the pictures, post them into the system, to allow any islander to take a picture of it, find out who the owner of the cart is, be able to post.
just one second.
Go
We're
ahead.
talking about the device for the house. There's also plenty of asset tracking devices out there that are not very expensive, that you can throw a little GPS thing on your cart and find out where it is, how fast it's going, what it's doing. If somebody's taking it out to the beach and is ruining the thing, then you'll know. So, you know, I mean, you can look that up. There's plenty of things like that out there.
So now you've opened up, there's just two last comments. First you, and then Swen can talk about it, geo-tracking.
Well, mine's only related. What's the process of who we notify when an electric box is knocked over and there's wires?
LCD.
So there's
We've got the electric law, they own all that.
Swen, you had something?
Swen,
Yeah.
you're gonna talk about, you mentioned to me, I think, about NCIC geo-tracking.
Yeah,
of their new
so-
carts. There's-
Yeah, so Brian has installed a new system on their tower. They're going to be deploying a bunch of new carts, trying to get clarification. Bill is also to make sure that they're going to actually have them chipped down, but they will be able to see all the carts, where they are. They can remotely disable them. So if they see them going too fast or whatever, they can remotely disable that cart. They're working on a geofence to keep them off beaches and also to prevent them from going north end when it's flooding and stuff like that. So they're definitely taking a stance to try to control people on their carts moving forward.
They should include the Kubotas.
They have a tracker. on
Well,
it.
yeah, they are
They
tracking.
monitor.
He actually told me they're actually tracking the ferry too. They know where everything is at any time.
All right, thank you, Bill.
You're up.
Next, next one, Island Access.
So the Island Access Fund, a fund created years ago in sort of the hopes to buy a landing parcel for, island access. At the time, I won't go to a huge background, but at the time, Island Girl service was a little uncertain. And so the community thought, hey, we might need to buy this landing parcel. So as of right now, there's 120,000-ish in that account. And so
101.
Oh, sorry, 101. That was the whole thing. Yeah, so 101,000 in that account. I've been tasked with sort of going out, seeing, hey, is there a landing parcel that we could purchase? How would it work on operations and everything? It's an ongoing project. The initial research is we cannot buy a residential dock and convert it into an island access. So it's going to take a commercial docking parcel, which, as you all probably know, would be very, very expensive at this point on the island to get something like that done. So as we move forward with researching that project, it's probably, if we move forward with it, it's a partnership with some other entity or organization that might be building a dock where we could contribute and gain that access for membership. So ongoing process right now, still trying to vet out, what annual maintenance costs might be, insurances, things like that. So island access is just got to keep researching it through this year. But there are a couple of potential projects coming to different communities on the island where we may be able to participate and get that access if the organization wants to do that.
Are you taking a position on whether we should?
I'm not taking a position on whether we should yet. I probably err on the side of, I think it's a good idea. I think that as the island grows and we get more population here, we all know there are more people, more golf carts, everything coming. The current privately owned docking parcels will get more restrictive. So right now, when most of us have workers come over to work on our homes, if it's not NCIC, they're landing illegally at private docks, and they don't have any access. So same thing for you. If you come over at 9 p.m. at night and you're not on NCIC or Island Girl, you're a private, water taxi over, that captain's landing illegally, because as far as I know, NCIC doesn't allow them to land. Safety Harbor doesn't allow them to land, and anything over in the commercial zone is owned by a different entity, right? So that private captain technically wouldn't be covered by insurance to land at that private thing. So I think the island needs some sort of public access point.
Safe Harbor?
So Safe Harbor, just a quick show of hands. Who knows about the Safe Harbor Treehouses development, right? So a few of us do. I would venture to say that most of the island doesn't really know about it. I was at the presentation last year. I've had a couple of conversations with their CEO. I've gotten mixed messages from him. Some of the messaging from him is, hey, you guys are a small island. We were sort of taken aback that the community might not want us there, even though we think we're going to go, do something great. And we've got bigger fish to fry right now. We got a bunch of big projects, and hey, things aren't really moving forward. Separately, I got an email from their chief development officer that says they're in pre-application mode with the county. So they're definitely still walking down that path. So for us, I presented a plan to the board to educate, survey, and then interact with Safe Harbor. So over the next 6 weeks, the plan is to send out some communication, set up 2 different Zoom calls for the community, where I'll probably lead moderate. I think David will be on there because he was at that meeting. We'll probably find a 3rd person who was at the presentation so that we can convey what we know about the proposed development to as much of the community as wants to be involved, right? To answer some questions, because At this point, I would venture to say most of the community is just getting hearsay, right? You're just hearing what someone else has heard about it. And so we'll try to give you as much information as we have. And then early summer, the goal after those 2 Zoom calls is to send out a survey to the island. Super simple, not a long survey, get feedback. Where does the island community stand on this? Are you avidly against it? Are you for it, you know, without recourse, or are you for it with planned development, with island input? And I think at that point, we're going to take that survey back, we'll create a report, and then we'll know, right? If 75% of respondents say they're avidly against it, then I think the UCCA board has to decide, are we the dog in that fight? Are we going to move forward and fight that development with the county? After we have that report, the goal is then to set up a couple of Zoom town halls with the CEO of Safe Harbor so that he can explain their position on why they want to be here, what the logistics are, and all like that. And then we'll just take it from there. But right now, because we don't, I couldn't look at you all and go, are you all for it or are you all against it, right? We've got to get that feedback to see where the community is. My personal opinion is that it's going to lean to against, but we'll see. So that's sort of the goal. AJ.
But I want to make you aware that I've been in contact with Rob Fowler Sr., who's one of the construction guys. I've been left with the impression they are moving along on your part B.
Yeah.
And I would volunteer to be that third person on there because I think this community has a vested interest in the roads going around there, the tidal intrusion problems that
the wetlands.
Roads is going to get involved in.
Yep.
We could really solve some major problems that this island has above and beyond this commercial development.
Yeah.
There's some property issues there.
Yeah.
So I'm part of that.
Love to have you on that. And that will be part of what we look at, right? If community-wide, we're not avidly against it, it's the time to ask for something. And in my last communication with him, he was like, we'd love to see a list of items you want. He knows that we're going to ask for something. So it's like, hey, if you're coming, you know, regardless, we want you to fix this, we want you to do this. And I think that they will be open to it to, you know, a limited amount, right? They're not going to come drop $5 million on us on their $5 million development.
How about access to their commercial dock?
Well, so I did ask him, I did ask him about that, and I think that they're open to that. Unfortunately, what I asked the day of the presentation was, I'd love you to buy that piece of property right next to you, donate to land conservation and give us that dock on it, but that parcel is under contract now and not to them. So that's gone.
At their presentations, didn't they assure that they were very interested in our opinion and that they would involve us along the way?
They will, and I get that feeling from him.
You do?
I do. And I also get the feeling that if we pushed back really hard, that they might go away. I mean, keep in mind that that parcel is going to take a rezoning. And there are a lot of questions, and that there was sort of a thing to try to develop that parcel years ago, and they couldn't get past it, not different company. Because of the complications of it, they're going to hit walls with the county, they're going to hit walls with the state, there's ecological issues with doing as big of a development as they plan to do on that. And that's why they're doing them as tree houses up off the ground and everything. But it's going to be quite the process for them.
Okay, is there going to be a public hearing with the commissioners before they get the okay?
Oh yeah, for sure. So there are several steps.
So how far off is that?
Well, way off at this point. They're in pre-application mode, which means they're going through the application and trying to preliminary get answers to things that they're going to encounter and try to solve. One really great thing that came into our ordinance that created the Brazilian pepper debacle was, back in 2012, part of that ordinance is a requirement for any zoning change, any variance, that they have to have a public meeting on the island with islanders. So that presentation they gave last year was not that. So that has to be filed through the county, documented. They're gonna have to come to UCCA, anyone else who might have an email list or people to get that word out, and then they're gonna have to post on the island and have a public meeting. From what I understand through the process, and I've got a local attorney who's very familiar with county stuff, is it's actually, once it gets to the county commissioners, we're too late. We've got to get to the actual planning board before that point.
Right.
So that's a big part of our step, is to get that timeline and know where and when our plan of attack is, right? Whether we're asking for things, because we could, it's a little bit like holding a ransom. It's like, no, we're going to vote no, and we're going to make this a problem for you unless we get A, B, and C,
And,
right, for the island.
A, B, and C might not be worth it ever.
And you're right. And there are a load of questions, and we'll answer those on this Zoom. I mean, I've got way more questions after the presentation than he answered. The logistics don't make sense to me of what they're planning to do. And my first question to him that day was, how does this benefit the island? And I still don't see how it benefits the island.
No, it's just gonna take away from the island, no matter
So,
what they give us.
those are things that we need to ask the hard questions with.
Yeah, and Salty Approach Airport has said no to that.
Yeah.
That
So
they will not sell a membership to their quote unquote LLC.
Yeah.
To allow people to come to the Treehouse.
Yeah.
As via airplane with a guest pass.
Well, and also think about that, and I don't want this to devolve into what the Zoom will be, but people are naturally going to do the easiest thing. So what beach are most of their people going to use?
Yeah.
The Salty Approach one, where you might get beheaded if you're in the wrong, position. And so overcrowding that beach is a bad idea. That day when they presented golf carts, where they go walk everywhere. Okay, well now there's more people that are, Boats and Fun and Tortuga or whoever else, and you can't blame them. They're in business to do business. They will provide golf carts to them for a fee at some point, right? So if you got, I can't remember offhand, it was 9 tree houses, and you got 2, 3, 4 people in each. I mean, that's 9 plus more carts a day. Look, there's definitely a lot to go over. We'll go over on these Zooms, get the feedback, send the survey out, and then sort of plan, the future of the attack.
Yes.
Yeah, they definitely said no kitchens, probably like coffee maker, standard hotel-ish kind of, probably a little refrigerator coffee maker thing. Well, yeah, so that's a whole different thing, right? So that parcel has 5 or 6 docks there that are technically zoned multifamily, not commercial. So that's a whole nother thing. I'll explain my problem with their logistics real quick, and then let's wrap this up, because it's sort of devolving into what the Zooms will be. So their logistical sort of pitch was, when their members come in, many of them will come by car and not by boat, which I don't believe. They will have to check in at Pineland Marina, and then they will take Island Girl to come over, get picked up, be taken to their tree house, and not have their boat there. My premise is this: if I live in Sarasota and I'm a boater and I have a boat, I'm bringing my boat down here. And so you're going to make me go to Pineland Marina, park my boat where? Get on Island Girl, come over here to be on this beautiful island without my boat? It's not going to happen, right? If I have a boat, I want my boat here. So.
And they can anchor in Safety Harbor.
Yeah, and all those logistics of more boat traffic and Safety Harbor. That's where I think, it depends on how much of a voice opposed to it collectively we want to have. But mean, you bring FWC into it and protection of manatees and the harbor, and hey, this is just going to bring 10 more boats a day in and out. The logistics don't make sense to me.
Well, I think we've got to make sure that this information of all the impacts needs to go out to the people before you take a survey.
Oh yeah, and so that's the goal. That's the goal, is to have the informational, educational Zoom meetings, right? We'll speak of it. We'll have Q&A session after it, so everyone can ask all their questions. We can really get this info out. But again, on the community standards and peer pressure, when I send it out, or when David sends it out, please come to those Zoom meetings and please get everyone else too. We need a wider net, if you will, on this island for involvement.
We don't know a lot of the people.
I know.
They're like Officer Swiggy said, there are people up in the Midwest walk here and maybe they've never even been here, or they,
Yeah.
Well, we have quite a few for this meeting.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll get to them.
Party house. And I called the owner, I found the owner's phone number and called her and told her, I had a chat with her and said, look, I don't know if you know this, but your house is becoming a party house. If it were my house, I wouldn't want my investment or what I worked hard on to become destroyed, because they were bringing in DJs and letting them party at the pool. And she sold her house. She was like, I had no idea. And I was like, the market's hot right now. And so, she got with Mark, but it's like, we can reach out. We have that power, and we have who's at the phone, but we have
them.
They
work real well.
Yeah, so we'll wrap this part up, but it speaks to it, and I don't know if David got to it in his notes, but there are 138 household members of UCCA. There are not 138 plus people here or here today, right? And so there are people who want to be involved enough to pay their $50 a year. We just need them to come into the discussion more and become more involved. So we're not going to solve it overnight, but use that old double mint gun thing, right? If you tell two people and they tell two people, just by attrition over time, let's double and triple the involvement here.
All right, thank you, Sven. Do you have anything?
Yep. So one quick thing, just conservation. This will be really quick. I started discussions with Ryan Orgera, who's the executive director of the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. They have a high interest in helping us with conservation efforts. That's everything from land conservation to wildlife and vegetation conservation. It's been a little slow moving as he and his wife are expecting their first child, and so he's been a little out of touch. And his goal is hopefully by July to have hired a new employee at SCCF that will have a big focus on Upper Captiva and sort of working on those things. We could not have a worse time in history on the island to think about land conservation, right? If we all opened our checkbooks today, it's just way more expensive than it was 3 years ago and 5 and 8 years ago. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It just means that the impact of what we can do will be less. To me, it comes down to individual and group homeowners. I personally have bought 2 land parcels in the past 6 months with neighbors. One of them, it was 5 of us. The other one, it was 2 of us. And so I would, where you can, identify parcels that are meaningful to you and get them off the market, right? And reach out to your neighbors and see if they are about it too. I've gotten some feedback from new builds going on that, views are being lost and changed. If you own that parcel next to you, it changes that. It's a tough time for it, right? Because that parcel was $60,000, the beginning of last year is now $140,000 and going up. So Just more about conservation as we go. We'll come out with some documentation on what people can do individually, or as a group, or as a community, what we can do to work on land conservation, wildlife conservation. I don't think any of us want to be here in 10 years and not see a gopher tortoise around because they've all been moved off land. Whoa! Because one thing I was asking, Ryan at SCCF about is the gopher tortoises, and when they are removed from the island for a new build, right? Sometimes you can just move them to another land parcel, but eventually we're going to lose those land parcels to move them to. And I was like, well, would we be able to move them to the state land? He goes, no. When you bring them in to move them off, like your developed thing, they're going to take them off island, right? And we don't want to lose our nature. That's why we're here. So conservation is going to be an important thing moving forward, but it's going to be tough because, as I said, 20 new homes going up this year. You should expect that for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions anybody has of swim? All right, moving on. Is there any other business anybody wants to discuss?
I have a question, just about the general fund, just from being a bookkeeper in my life. Are those funds in an interest-bearing account? Where they were getting much interest?
Make 3 cents a month.
Put them in an interest-bearing account? That's why I'm-
They are in interest-bearing accounts.
Yeah, the interest rates from banks is nothing because the federal funds rate is nothing.
Okay.
So.
I have a question. I noticed some signage down by the airport on the east side, very old, worn out signs asking people to leave the manatees alone. I don't know if that's part of the UCCA. There's some signs up here on this road that say, UCCA and about kids driving golf carts. Maybe we should get some signs that say slow down, please slow down, something like that. Also, here's interesting, we used to live over in Cocoa Beach, and every access on their beach where the streets lead down the wood, they all had a pole with the name of the street on it, just like we do out here for Hodgepodge, Escondido, etc. I think it would be an awesome idea if we did that on the end of each street. You might have to move it back a little bit because of the erosion, but it was really cool to see because when, especially guests are walking down the beach and they're thinking, oh, I need to go back. What street was I staying on again? Because ours are just paths going down there. But I think it would be an awesome thing if we had signs like that saying Escondido, Hidden Lane, right down at the end. It's just a simple pole, just like we have out here, and it was pretty cool. So I just thought I'd bring that up and see what you thought about it.
Next time we do the signs, we'll take it under advisement.
Old road signs. There were no road signs. I don't know if you remember before. Like
They're just old now, it needs to be
Well,
replaced.
Yeah, they need to be redone.
Yeah,
They're
we haven't done it
in bad
yet.
shape.
Like we intend to repaint the ones that need.
That's on our list.
May I suggest that some of you active people on Facebook, that if you were to make just an appeal and say, any entrepreneurs interested in starting a golf cart rental business on the island? I mean, there's boats and fun. Is there anything else?
NCIC.
Lieutenant
does that.
Sawicki, well, but they're limited. They're severely limited.
Well, I think what you're going to find, and that comes up, right? Is there, someone that would step up and create that livery business? Is where are you going to put all those carts, right? So,
Well, you have to buy a lot.
I know. You have to buy a lot.
Suggestion on that, actually.
Yep, go
You
ahead.
could just sell the service and livery them in place and just unlock them and have when the people check in, sign this is how you go forward, this is how you go backward. This little round thing makes you go side to side. Now you know how to use it, it's been inspected. Somebody who has the right certification can just sell their service.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion to that end.
So, and
We
I
don't
tell you
have
this,
scorecards,
if
right?
I were younger in a different space, I'd do it in a heartbeat because there's a good business to be had for someone.
I think that the focus should be, rather than figuring out how to get more golf carts here, let's figure out how to discourage golf carts and use bicycles.
Yeah,
The one
that's a
reason
great
why
idea.
You can't have bicycles at your rental homes are because the tires are constantly flat and guests use them. So we've actually thought about opening a bike shop on this island. My husband actually owns another bike shop. But the first problem that we have, I mean, we have bike mechanics and everything, it's something we would consider, but the first problem that we have is it has to be open on a commercial property if it's going to be done legally. So if there are any movers and shakers here who want to think that through in terms of how to provide a site for a golf cart rental place, we would seriously consider having the mechanics and taking care of the rest of it more as a community service than as really a money-making venture. Because I think that should be a big goal. Less golf carts, more fat tire bikes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's discourage golf carts.
So, the only comment I've got for the end of the meeting is, as we know, there were over 100 properties sold last year during 2021. I'm going to find out the exact number and how many have actually been reported as sold in the last 3 months, because I'm going to work with Rick so we can provide, I can provide him some some mailing addresses for those new owners that are vacant lot owners. But I would also like Rick to explain or to tell the group what changes he's going to be experiencing in his life before the June meeting and what that means for the rest of the island.
Well, Lucy and I are leaving is the short story. So you will, next time there's a meeting, which is beginning of July, Jackie will cover that in a moment, there'll be a new recording secretary. I'm sure somebody who can actually write. That will be helpful. And it's going to be a new adventure for us. We haven't been here that long, about 2.5 years, and we've enjoyed every minute of it. And that is making it a very sad occasion for us to leave. But there's some issues with medical access, health, and stuff like that. And it seems like sooner or later this is going to come and bite us in the you-know-what. So now is the time we've decided to depart. So what I will be doing here is setting up the meetings, minutes for this meeting, working with Bill possibly to send out another notification to vacant lot owners saying what we know and don't know on Brazilian pepper. But I've enjoyed working with this board and the one prior to this board. I've enjoyed answering questions that have been sent in from members and islanders. And I wish you all the very best on this island.
Reason I wanted to mention it, not putting on the spot, but if there's any interest in that position, you need to let us on the board know, because the board will be the one selecting Rick's replacement before the next election, which is in December. So if there's interest on the island for the position that Rick vacates, when he vacates it, you should let one or all of us know that you're interested. Thank you.
All right, meeting dates, the next board meeting is June the 28th. The next general meeting is July the 6th. And the times will be posted. Motion to adjourn?
I know.
Yeah, all right. We're adjourned.
Thanks.